Given that we do in fact have a quorum, I can call this meeting of the Charlottesville PCOB to order. The first item on the agenda is announcements, if anyone has any, for the good of the board. I don't know now, Hansel. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Chair and board members. I just wanted to, gentle reminder, if you haven't had the opportunity to connect with the facilitators, if you could please connect with them so we can finish up the preparations for a retreat. And the other thing, if you're still interested in going to the George Mason evidence-based policing symposium in June, please let me know. And you actually have to sign up by yourself, or I can do it for you, but whatever which way, you have to do it as soon as possible, because I do think they have limited seats. And I sent the information about the Canadian version of NACO, and you may have some funds to be able to have virtual attendance. So please let me know as soon as possible if you're interested in that, so we can purchase that. That's coming up next month.
Thank you, Hansel. Anyone else?
I just had a question for Hansel, if I could, Mr. Chair, about the, I didn't see it on the agenda, about the Surface tablets, where things stand with that, because as you know, Hansel, I wasn't able to get access to the training.
Yeah, I was actually going to cover that under the online training progress.
That's fine. Just hold it.
All right. The next order of business is approval of the minutes, and the executive director has provided those. So they have been posted publicly for both of our last two meetings. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Director, could you poll the board?
Sure. Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Carpenter?
I'm going to vote yes, but shouldn't we have been polled at the call to order so that the minutes reflect who's here in attendance? Just a point of order. But anyway, I say yes to approve the minutes. They're fine.
Member Frazier?
Yes.
Member Gilmore? Chair Mendez?
Yes. Let's see. Okay, so I do not see Ms. Gilmore either as an attendee or a panelist. I assume she cannot make it, and if she will, we will promote her so she can participate. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone who has any comments, wants to suggest any changes or amendments?
Let me get it up here.
And I should just point out that, Nancy, the minutes will show who was here. So I haven't, gone to a formal roll call.
Oh.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Aguilar?
Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Carpenter?
Yes.
Member Frazier?
Yes.
Chair Mendez?
Yes. So the agenda is approved. The next item then on the agenda would be a public comment session. Mr. Trail, would you see if there's anyone who wants to address the board?
Yes. If you'd like to speak at this time, please click the raise hand icon in your Zoom webinar, or if you're joining us via telephone, you can press *9. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Chair, oh, there we go. Ange Khan, you are on with the board. Yours.
I just have a quick question. At the end of the meeting, is there going to be an option for public comment as well?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that one then. Thank you.
Okay, there are no more hands raised.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trail. Our next item is the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Aguilar.
Okay, one second. I'm just going to share the screen. And just as a reminder, I do post the report on our website, so you can access it there. I haven't been putting it as an agenda item because it goes directly on the website, but I could also put it part of the package if you want to do it that way as well. Just 1 second. Okay. So of note, I think of one thing I want to highlight for our this past month is that we were able to select a work study student. She has started a few weeks ago. Her name is Ella Nelson. She's a first-year student at UVA, and she's studying politics and sociology. She's very eager to be part of our board and be able to assist us in the administrative duties. She actually came to the presentation that we did at UVA last month with Chair Mendez, and she inquired about the possibility of doing a work study. And her impact has been immediate. I've already been giving her some tasks, and she's been very eager about doing them and about learning. So hopefully we'll be able to set some times for the board members to meet, although the semester is ending next month, but she is eager to come back in the fall semester as well. So the budget.
Mr. Director, will she be attending any of our monthly meetings?
Oh, unfortunately for this semester, she does have a conflict with her schedule. So she's working 2 days remotely and 1 day in the office. She's coming in.
Okay.
For this semester. Next semester, if she comes back and her schedule allows, we could certainly discuss that.
Okay.
And her appointment or is for how long?
So it's per semester. So the end of the semester is May 13th. We will try to get some applications earlier in the semester, but we are one of the newest organizations that they added in the work study rotation. So it kind of took some nudging and reaching out to departments. But hopefully by next semester, we'll have a little bit more presence and more students will be applying.
Okay.
Here's an overview of our budget to actuals. The fiscal year is coming up at the end of June. We still have some money left over. We did invest some good amount in the equipment that we were going to get. I actually don't procure that equipment directly because for cybersecurity reasons, it goes through our IT department. We did start that process actually last month. They were looking at vendors and they have found a vendor that can provide them. A week and a half ago, I was told it should be within 30 days that we'll get that equipment. So I'll be keeping you updated on that. Once we get that equipment, though, we're going to be able to do a lot of the trainings, like Dr. Frazier was saying. There was an email about cybersecurity training, and there were some access issues with that just because you don't have a issued city device, but you shouldn't have these issues once we get these computers in your hands. And with that also, we have been discussing, before I get to the oversight activities, we have been discussing with the CPD about the training. So we were trying to find out the best logistical path to do that. We're in communications with our communications department, so we're doing that, and we'll be able, once we get the equipment and do the modules, we'll be able to upload that to SharePoint for you to access. For oversight activities.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Can I just interrupt very quickly and just
Sure.
ask? Give us a sort of a hint of the flavor of the modules, basically, that we're going to get.
I'm sorry, you want to go through the modules?
Well, or just some of the high points.
Sure. So some of the points, and especially to prepare you for your pending hearings, there is going to be some discussion on use of force. So there's going to be a classroom one where they'll go over case law, general orders, anything that's related to use of force from a written perspective, but there's also the aspect of the practical component. How does that look like in person? So there might be, or there will be, an opportunity to have an in-person session, so you can look at what some of these use of force training on the police department looks like. So there'll be two components as it relates to use of force, but there'll be also discussions about what their procedures are when it comes to First Amendment assemblies, when it their policies as they relate to traffic stops, as they relate to warrants, and a whole wealth of different policing activity. And again, the idea is to have modules that we can have the instructors of this police department be able to record, and we'll have it in SharePoint, so you'll be able to review it at your pace and also have it for your review once you get a case of that particular subject matter, and then you can also prepare on throughout your experience as a board member.
All right, thanks a lot.
You will. So for the complaint activities, and this is a temporary format under Chair Brown. There was a table that we had, and we're actually going to move back to a more visual component in that, but we're actually waiting on a few pieces of technology to be able to get a more presentable status on complaint activity. So now I've just been reporting it out in this particular format, but we are going to switch back to a more visual format in the upcoming months. But since your last meeting, we received one initial complaint that is going to be investigated by the CPD at this time. The operating procedures haven't been approved, so at this time we're operating under the 2019 ordinance, which allows you to review and not be able to do the other activities yet. So that complaint was received by the police department, and it was regarding an African-American community member, a female, that stated that on several occasions the police department has, and a particular officer has been harassing her in one way or another. We haven't received any review requests since the last meeting. We haven't received any closure letters. We did receive 2 inquiries since the last month. One of them, the anonymous complainant actually submitted that message to the police department directly, so they are aware of it. And it was regarding what they believe was unprofessional activity that was captured and uploaded to social media. So again, at this time, we didn't receive anything. I attempted to do a formal intake to get a complaint. The individual informed me that at this time he doesn't feel comfortable providing more information, but the police department has that information already, and they can look further into this matter. For our purposes, though, it wasn't a complaint proper, so we got to make sure that when we do our public education, we inform complainants what the actual complaint intake process is like. The other inquiry that we received was of a female community member, and she indicated that she felt that the police department was not taking her complaint regarding a death threat she received seriously. So she was very dissatisfied with that. I have been in contact with her, and I'm trying to set up a time right now. Personally, it's not a good time for her, so I am monitoring any further contact from her and letting her know what the process is. I mentioned the operating procedure. Yes, Dr. Frazier.
Oh, you mute.
Sorry, I don't see it on here, but where do things stand with the software, the tracking software beta site?
Yeah, so and that was in the terms of next steps. We did finalize the complaint software agreement with Civil.
Okay, great.
And they're customizing it to our particular needs. We do have the beta site. I can actually just show you what that might look like once I finish just giving the update on the operating procedures.
Great, thank you.
So the operating procedures in your last special meeting, which March 23rd, you approved it. We submitted to City Council. There was some discussions about whether it was going to be put on the April 18th agenda, and it was actually put on the 18th agenda. So that is something that they're going to discuss. At this time, they're not going to make a vote on it, but they are going to have the first public discussion about these procedures, and they are posted on the website already. We did reformat them as was requested. So, and I can show you what that looks like real quick.
So is that it for your report?
No, I was just showing you this.
Oh,
So
sorry. Got it. Sorry.
they have been reformatted. It's the same content that you voted on. They're just in this particular module setup. And this is what is on the agenda for City Council to decide. Or excuse me, they're not gonna decide yet. They're gonna discuss it publicly.
And this is 18th is Monday, right? Yeah.
18th is Monday, correct.
Got it.
Okay, and the last thing, the civil, I can show you what that is going to look like. And again, they're finishing, they're putting the last touches into it. We have a tentative May date for the rollout, but that's a tentative date, so I don't want to give that as a finalized date yet. Sorry, my computer's a little slow, but okay. So I'm going to share the screen. And this is going to look like they're going to add right now we have to make the compliment, make a complaint. They're going to add request a review. So that'll be a specific, and then you'll be able to track your case through here. It's more or less what it's going to look like, but we already put in the final touches for it.
And if you push the make a complaint button, you are sent to a form that asks you for various kinds of information about the incident, essentially. And there you go. And the idea so we are basically going to adopt civil to start with as the board's method of tracking complaints. Is that the plan?
That's correct.
And as I understand it, the city, for the time being, CPD for the time being is going to stick with their own system. But we at least will have our database and information that we can analyze. And hopefully this will be a useful example for people.
I saw Ms. Carpenter. I don't know if she had okay. And just a few more things on the, well, actually one last thing was the retreat preparations again. The facilitators, they're just doing a pre-retreat session, one-on-one sessions. They've gathered the information that help them be able to structure the retreat based on what the board members are seeking out of it. And then we'll be able to hopefully pick a date that works for everybody, and then we'll be able to have that retreat. And I think that's all I have right now for my particular report section.
And I think the dates were May 7th, 21st, and 28th. Was that? These were Saturdays, basically.
It was the 7th, 14th, and 28th because they had a
Oh,
conflict.
7th, 14th, and
That's
28th. Okay.
Yeah, that's what they told me.
Okay, well, that's good. I knew it was three, yeah, 3 days in. Got it. 3 Saturdays in May. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope, I was very impressed with my interviewers. I thought they asked really very interesting questions. And so I hope we will, that may be the first time we all get to meet together.
Yeah.
On top of everything else. So,
Mr. Chair, I met with them today, and I just would echo what you said. They asked questions that made me think they know what they're talking about, and I think we'll have formed a model to bring to us based upon what they're hearing. So I'm pleased.
and their model was quite, quite concrete. I'm sort of a pragmatist and suspicious of things that can get very emotional and touchy-feely, but people knew what they were doing. There is no question. And again, I'm very much looking forward to getting together with them. Okay, is that it? I guess Hansel?
Yes, that's all I had for my report.
Yeah, now the next item on the agenda was the discussion of the operating procedures. I don't know if there is any additional discussion of the operating procedures. I know that both Hansel and I are very anxious to get this, to get them on the city council agenda, and it's something of a disappointment that they seemingly have put it off again. So far, they have not provided us with any concrete negative pushback, other than maybe they would like us to get our preliminary hearings done first. But I think that's, putting the cart before the horse, and there's really no excuse for us, for not allowing us to become an operating board. So we'll see what happens on Monday night. Anyone else have any questions?
I just wonder if our outside counsel and the new Albemarle County attorney has had any reaction to or changes or anything. I don't know. I can't recall, Cynthia, if you had been down in the weeds on it last time we met.
That we discussed in the last meeting. We had an opportunity to weigh in real time. And certainly the follow-up from with respect to those edits that were approved by the board at the time were certainly in line with the discussion. So we had no additional comment on those.
Great. So it's really in a form, Mr. Chair, that council should be able to move swiftly should they choose to do so and get it approved.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anyone out there, anyone else, who knows how to influence the city council, please feel free to exercise that influence. The next item on the agenda was this committee template that I put together. If you recall, last time we discussed procedure for founding and maintaining committees of the board, which I think are necessary for us to focus our energies and call forth the gifts of the various members. And under our new operating procedures, the contemplated procedure is that any member of the board may propose a committee to found a committee. Presumably they would be on that committee, of course, and that they would then and then would be a vote of the full board could then approve it and set up, and we could set up a schedule and so on. What I put together was a document, this template. And so I have sent this around, so you should all have it. And this is this is a draft. And in the right-hand column, it's what are these committees going to be doing? What kind of committee is it? An executive committee, the finance, outreach, policy, review, whatever. Asking the question whether it needs to be a permanent committee or not. Actually, it should be standing / temporary. Who would be on it? What is it ultimately going to want to accomplish? What activities would the founders propose to take place? And then, what would be the schedule for pulling things together? Now, the only committee that we have now that's really doing a lot is the executive committee, and James and I and have been interacting with Hansel and with the city council and so on. But we clearly, I think we do need a finance and budget function. That we do definitely need a public outreach function. Hansel is very concerned that we also have a policy review group that can help us develop policy recommendations related to changes in operating procedures or policies. And of course, you can think of, they could also be one that would oversee audits and investigations, or perhaps those two could be rolled together, and and so on. As you can see, this template is blank mostly. And what I'd like to ask the board members to do is between now and the next meeting, think about ways to fill in boxes. For example, if you wanted to volunteer for a committee, you could just fill your name in. If you wanted to propose a new committee, that would be fine, and you just specify what who was going to be on it and what it was going to do, and how long it was going to take, and then share that with me. Share that with me or Hansel, before the next meeting, and then we can have the next iteration, and perhaps at our next board meeting we can vote on specific. We can vote on founding a committee or two. So does anybody have any questions or comments or?
Mr. Chair and Mr. Director, do you have a sense of where other needs might be in terms of the blank space at the bottom?
Well, I'm thinking that these are all sort of big general functions. And I am thinking that, gee, I don't have time to spend the next year on outreach. But someone could say, well, I could hold a block party, and I could set a date for 3 months, and I could get Nancy or Bellamy to work with me, and so it could be much less ambitious than these. But I think, it seems to me that the top three, executive, finance, and outreach, these are the functions that we need to have someone step up and take some leadership, as their gifts suited.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you might have said this, and if I missed it, I apologize for the redundancy, but the idea would be that these committees would be made up solely of members of the PCOB, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then so the other piece there would then be the number of committee members, because once you exceed 2 of you, it's a meeting of the board under FOIA anyway, and you just might want to keep in mind whether or not you contemplate that, and essentially it would simply require notice of the same nature that you have to provide for these meetings, with the FOIA rule that meetings of or gatherings of any more than 2 of you is considered a meeting of the board. So just suggesting you keep that in mind.
No, thank you. That's a good point. I think there was an underlying thought in my head which I did not articulate, which was that probably 2 people was the optimal size for a committee. Also, we can have advisory groups which are composed of members of the board and members of the public. And the difference there is that if they're members of the board, if they're members of the public involved, then the advisory committee can't actually do business that is authorized to the board. But other than that, we can have an advisory committee that will, give us information input. And anyone who wants to form an advisory committee, that would be great. An advisory group, that would be great as well. Nancy, your hand has been up. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. One committee I think I'd like to propose, to bring back next month, is a housing and homeless committee. Perhaps an advisory board capacity, I'm not sure, because there's a lot of activity around the country about criminalizing homelessness. In fact, today in Tennessee, State Senator, well, it might have been yesterday, but State Senator Nicely said homeless people ought to take a page out of Hitler's book and, do what he did, rise up and move ahead. So, and also there's a lot of complaints to the CPD about poverty on the downtown mall. And so I'm concerned that even with our outreach group, however that works out, that we might not have a lens on folks that are, that are deeply vulnerable to criminalization by the police. I'm not saying it's happening here, but rather have this in place instead of trying to scramble. But just a thought for the group to perhaps incorporate housing and homelessness as far as what we do.
Well, and again, Nancy, you're the expert. So if you fill in a row on this chart and ask somebody else to help you out, that would be perfect. And I know if my daughter were here, she would say, "Hey, what about mental health?" But the idea is that we have to pick and choose because we're a small board. And sort of one of the purposes behind this matrix kind of thing is to pick and choose things that we think are important. On hold. Hansel, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just had a
Thank you.
kind of a question and just some gentle guidance. Like, and you mentioned both housing and mental health. Are these not like general topic areas that are concerned, where what you're really trying to get at is what is the policy regarding these particular topics? So would this not be something that will fall under the policy review committee, and the policy review committee could have their priorities? We're going to look at housing, we're going to look at mental health, and then look at all the activities, practices, patterns, and then put forth because I think these are very important topics, but they might be housed under one of these standing committees, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Bellamy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to, I guess, really look at the overall scope of what our responsibilities are. I think when we look at the legislation that came out of the General Assembly, it was pretty well defined, and obviously the ordinance that City Council has passed. And I think that with regard to our role and oversight, I think it's those are the documents that pretty much kind of guide the functions and the purpose of the board. It's not to say that that those areas aren't something that needs to be looked at, but I think when we're talking about looking at those areas, I think the interaction would be looking at them as to how the police department itself, functions with those areas. But as far as, our overall role, I don't know if the 350 grand that we have in addition to everything else is really in line with what the General Assembly and the City Council passed in the ordinance.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We need to pick and choose our fights and focus. But I could see, and I think this will require more discussion, certainly. But I could see a situation, for example, in which we could ask the executive director to do an audit of police encounters over the last 3 to 5 years, or arrests, and ask to look at what proportion of people were housing impaired, and what proportion of the people were, in emotional stress or in psychological difficulty. And then I think that Hansel has a really, good idea that our policy review function, it's kind of hidden down in the language there, but that's really, it can be quite a powerful tool. And so, the idea of having audits and making informed recommendations, whether it be about, improved training in general, anti-racism or housing or mental illness. I think that, that's going to be very important. So, as I say, if anybody wants to share thoughts on this matrix, or volunteer for a committee, or just talk with me or Hansel about the best ways to address your specific concerns, let's have those discussions this month, so that we can start, putting together a slightly more organized structure at our next meeting. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. Now there's something. I have no idea how to stop sharing. Oh, God.
Bill, can I just ask one question before you leave the general discussion of committees? I recall the city attorney, Lisa Robertson, questioning whether or not advisory committees could be created that include non-appointed board members. And in looking at the ordinance, I certainly see a reference to advisory panels in the, but it's only in the annual report section. And perhaps that's all you need. But at the same time, I just wanted to make sure that we were reminded of that concern of the city attorney as to whether or not that was indeed within your authority. But again, it is referenced in the ordinance, so I understand and appreciate that. But
yeah, now the way I understand this, Cynthia, after having read Lisa's comment, was her specific concern was that we were going to, in the penultimate draft of the operating procedures, that we were going to convene a committee or a subcommittee not composed of board members for the specific purpose of disciplining our own members, or even getting rid of our own members, dismissing our own members. And I think her concern was that no, you can't do that, because that is a function that is strictly reserved for the city council.
Understood, yes.
And so when we drafted the final draft, we adopted her language for, disciplinary procedures or complaints against the board, and took out the language about, convening a subcommittee to deal with that issue. So I think we're good.
So your read is that it was subject matter specific.
I think so. In the now, there's a sentence in the advisory panel section of the OPCs that says advisory panels shall not conduct any functions that have been delegated specifically to the board. I think that will do it.
I certainly understood. Just wanted to raise the issue, since it's not an express power of the board to create advisory panels. But there is a reference to them in one section of the ordinance, even though there isn't the express power. So I think we're on the same page and absolutely understand your take on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other issues people want to raise about committees? All right, the next item is the so-called annual report, which, as you'll notice, is put in this in the agenda as a parentheses tri-annual report, because this we're a year and a half overdue, and basically why this is on the agenda is because Hansel and I have been discussing ways to sort of find closure and bring this document to a conclusion. If you remember, I pulled together a draft last summer, just before Hansel got here, and which was sort of a condensed history of the board up until that point. And I think the intent at this point is to just bring that up to date and bring it a draft, if we can get it ready in time for your attention by the next meeting. Now, do you have any other comments, Hansel, that you?
No, it's just that it is required by the ordinance to present the annual report of your activities. It specifies what activities they were interested in looking at. And the new order, the amended ordinance, has the report being due on April 15th. So we're kind of in line with the new ordinance deadline at this point. But the Office of Human Rights, or the Human Rights Commission, they're presenting their report, I believe, at the 18th meeting. So if you want to tune into that, you can look at that presentation as well.
Okay. So it's more drafting, and I will get it to the board for review as soon as we can. Okay, any other comments, questions? Right. In that case, I believe the next item on the agenda is our second public comment period. Mr. Trail?
If you'd like to speak to the board at this time, please click the raise hand icon in your Zoom webinar, or if you're joining us via telephone, you can press *9. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised. There we go. Benj Khan, you're on with the board.
Sorry, I lost connection for a brief moment. I do have a question in regards to your decision-making power and what you're planning to adapt. Is this now the time, or should I bring this up at a different meeting?
I'm not sure what decision-making power you are referring to. I mean, we can answer your question at the best we can.
Okay. So I'm referring to the power to investigate certain members investigating other members of the board.
Yeah, that's.
Would that be tomorrow, on Monday?
Well, I suspect that the city council will ask that question, but in the latest draft of the document, the way things work, which is certainly a sort of a compromise, is that it preserves the city council's absolute right to remove an individual for cause. And if a complaint is filed, they will learn about it. It also gives the board the ability to exercise discipline on its members to the extent of excluding them from certain decisions and certain functions, and that's it.
Okay. And then also, is that retroactive?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there are no more hands raised at this time, at least from the public.
Does anyone have any comments before we adjourn? Is there a motion?
I believe Ms. Hudson has something that she would like to say. Her hand's raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. I didn't see it.
Unintentionally. I'm sorry.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hansel?
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Carpenter,
Yes.
Member Frazier,
Yes.
Chair Mendes.
Yes. Okay, I guess the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you all for coming.
Care.
Thank you, Cynthia.